The void is not darkness, it is infinite potential. The mutation consuming Kaito's body is not a death sentence. It is a transformation, one that could make him the first true void sovereign in history. But Morath isn't waiting for Kaito to evolve. He's corrupted Seraphil, the divine champion, and built an army of void-twisted abominations. They are marching toward the safe house, and Kaito has 7 days. He won't get 7 days. Morath moved faster than anyone anticipated, while Kaito studied the memory his grandfather had sent. While the team rested and planned, the High Priest of Oblivion had harvested 3 more villages, fed their souls to his army, accelerated his march. 300 miles collapsed to nothing under the feet of creatures that didn't need rest, didn't need food, didn't need anything but the void energy pumping through their twisted bodies. They would reach the safe house in 48 hours. Kaito had planned for 7 days of preparation. He was about to get 2. How many? Kaito asked. 300 corrupted soldiers, at least. Each one juiced with harvested soul energy. They're not human anymore, more like void golems wearing skin. And Seraphil? Ren hesitated. Different from before, bigger, darker. The divine energy is still there, but it's infected, like golden light bleeding through black oil. He's stronger than when he fought you, much stronger. Morath? Staying behind his army, letting his weapons do the work. Silence. We can't fight that, Arya said, not defeatist, analytical. 4 people against 300 corrupted soldiers and a weaponized divine champion. The math doesn't work. We run, Ren suggested. Regroup, find allies. They'll follow, Yuki interrupted quietly. Morath is tracking Kaito's void signature. Running delays the confrontation. It doesn't avoid it, and every day we delay, Morath harvests more souls, more villages die. Then what do we do? Everyone looked at Kaito, the boy who had been the weakest, the boy who had defied gods, broken rituals, and denied the void itself. They looked at him because somewhere along the way, without anyone deciding it, he had become their leader, and leaders had to make impossible choices. How long would the transformation take? Kaito asked. If I stopped resisting, if I let the mutation reach my heart willingly. The room went silent. Kaito, no! Arya started. Yuki, how long? The blind sage was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of someone calculating the incalculable. Unknown. Hours. Minutes. The mutation has been building for 2 weeks. Releasing resistance would accelerate it exponentially, but the transformation itself will either kill me or make me something new. I know. How long for the process? If it works, perhaps 12 hours. If it fails, seconds. Yes. Kaito looked at his hand, at the dark veins and the gold threads woven through them, at the evidence of something trying to be born. 12 hours? And the army arrives in 48. Kaito! Arya's voice was sharp. You heard your grandfather's memory. He said the transformation requires surrendering control while maintaining identity. He failed. The most powerful void user in history failed, and it turned him into the destroyer of civilizations. He also said he failed because he tried to do it alone. Kaito turned to face them. I'm not alone. I need 12 hours, Kaito said. 12 hours to let the transformation complete. During those 12 hours, I'll be vulnerable, defenseless, lost inside my own body while the void rewrites everything I am. And you need us to protect you, Ren said. I need you to do more than that. The transformation requires an anchor, something outside the void to remind me who I am, to pull me back if I start to drown. He looked at Arya. She looked back. I'll be your anchor, she said. No hesitation, no doubt. as if she'd already decided days ago. "Then I need the rest of you to buy me time. 12 hours against an army of 300. Ren laughed, a disbelieving, slightly hysterical sound. 12 hours, 3 people, against 300 monsters and a corrupted god slayer. He drew his divine sword. The golden blade hummed. Sounds about right for this group. Yuki stood, slowly, painfully, her cracked staff in one hand, her blind eyes fixed on nothing and everything. "I've been alive for 10,000 years, she said. "It's about time I did something worthy of all that borrowed time." They worked through the night. Ren trained like he had never trained before, not for status, not for pride, for the 3 people who had become, impossibly, the closest thing to family he'd ever allowed himself. Yuki poured decades of conserved power into defensive barriers, layer after layer, each one weaker than the last as her reserves dwindled, but each one buying minutes, and minutes were all they needed. And in the center of the cottage, Kaito sat cross-legged on the floor, his mutated hand resting on his knee, his father's sword across his lap, preparing for the most dangerous thing he had ever attempted, letting go. There was more to say. There's always more to say when tomorrow isn't guaranteed, but some things don't need words. Arya placed her hand, cold, steady, certain, over Kaito's mutated one, ice against void, frost against infinity, and for a moment, both powers calmed, as if they recognized each other, as if they'd been waiting to meet. At dawn, Kaito closed his eyes and stopped fighting. For 2 weeks, he had resisted the mutation with every fiber of his being, pushed back against the void spread, fought to remain human. Now, he let go, not surrendered, not submitted, invited. The void rushed in like an ocean breaking through a dam. 2 weeks of contained pressure, released in an instant, it flooded his cells, his bones, his blood, his mind, and Kaito fell into infinity. Inside, the void was everything, not darkness, not light, everything, every possibility that had ever existed or could ever exist, happening simultaneously. Every power, every creation, every destruction, every thought, every feeling, every moment of every life in every world, all at once, all-consuming. And somewhere in the infinite, Kaito's identity began to dissolve. It would have been so easy to let go completely, to stop being Kaito Yamamoto, the bullied boy, the weakest student, the orphan with too much power and too much pain, to become the void, infinite, painless, eternal. This was where Kazuki had fallen. This was the seduction, not darkness, but the promise of becoming everything by surrendering being anyone. Kaito felt himself slipping, felt his memories fading, his name dissolving, his purpose. And then, cold, a single point of cold in an ocean of infinity, familiar, specific, real, Arya. Her voice, distant and muffled, like hearing someone call your name from the bottom of the ocean. "Kaito! I'm here! Come back to me!" Not commanding, not desperate, just present. A fixed point in a universe of infinite motion. And Kaito remembered. He was not the void. He was not infinity. He was a boy who trained in the rain when no one believed in him. He was a son who carried his father's sword. He was a student who refused to accept a rank assigned at birth. He was stubborn, imperfect, human. And that was what the void needed. Not another vessel to fill, a partner to shape it. They came 8 hours ahead of schedule. Morath had pushed his army through the night. No rest, no mercy. 300 corrupted soldiers slamming into Yuki's barriers like a wave against a seawall. The first barrier held for 11 minutes, the second for 8, the third for 5, each one weaker than the last, and behind them all, Ren stood alone. Ren Takahashi had spent his entire life believing power was a birthright. That being born strong meant he was meant to win. Now, standing alone against an army, his body screaming, his divine blessing burning through its reserves. He understood what Kaito had always known. Power meant nothing without something worth fighting for. Hours passed. The barriers fell one by one. Ren fought like a man possessed. Every cultist he dropped, 2 more took its place. His divine sword chipped, his armor cracked. Blood ran from a dozen wounds, but he held the line. Because behind that line, inside the cottage, Arya sat with her hands on Kaito's, pouring her ice energy into the anchor, keeping his consciousness alive while the void transformed his body. And Kaito's body was changing. The dark veins had covered him entirely now, his skin shifting between human and something else, obsidian and gold, like a living statue of 2 impossible materials merging. He was neither alive nor dead, neither human nor void. He was becoming. Seraphiel, the divine champion who had retreated from Kaito once before, now twisted, enhanced, weaponized by Morath's corruption. He looked at Ren, battered, bleeding, barely standing, and dismissed him with a glance. He looked at Yuki, collapsed, powerless, her millennia of strength finally spent, and felt nothing. His target was inside, the void signature pulsing like a star going supernova. He raised his corrupted spear, and Ren stepped in his path. "You want him?" Ren said, blood dripping from his lip, his divine sword raised with both hands. "You go through me." Seraphiel regarded him, the corrupted divine champion versus the academy prodigy. The gap in power was obscene. "You are brave!" Seraphiel's voice was wrong. Layered, dual-toned, divine, and void speaking simultaneously. "Brave and foolish! Step aside, child! You cannot stop what is coming!" "Maybe not, but I can slow it down." "Why? Why sacrifice yourself for the Void Sovereign?" Ren smiled, bloody, defiant, real. "Because 3 years ago, I was too weak to be his friend. Today, I'm strong enough to die for him. That's called growth." He attacked. Ren Takahashi fought the battle of his life, not with skill. Seraphiel had millennia more, not with power. The corrupted champion was beyond mortal measure, with heart. The divine blessing in his blood blazed like a dying star, burning through its reserves, eating through his body, giving him seconds of impossible speed and strength in exchange for years of his life. He lasted 4 minutes, 4 minutes of pure suicidal defiance, and then Seraphiel's corrupted spear pierced through his shoulder and pinned him to the earth. Ren fell, Seraphiel advanced, and Grandmaster Yuki, broken, depleted, 10,000 years old and every year showing, pulled herself to her feet. "You cannot stop me," Seraphiel said. "You have no power left, no weapons, no barriers. You are nothing." "Yuki, I am 10,000 years of knowledge, 10,000 years of guilt, 10,000 years of borrowed time that I never deserved." She raised her empty hands, "And I am going to spend every last second of it." The runes ignited, not the barriers that had fallen, something else, something buried deep in the earth, spread across miles of forest and mountain, a containment seal, not for Kaito, for everything else. Yuki had spent years preparing this, embedding sealing runes into the landscape during her retirement, not knowing exactly when they'd be needed, not knowing exactly what they'd face, but knowing, with 10,000 years of certainty, that someday the Void's enemies would come, and someone would need to hold them. The seal locked into place. Seraphiel roared, divine and void power slamming against the barrier. It held, barely, but it held, because it wasn't powered by Yuki's current strength. It was powered by her life. Every year she had left, every second of her 10,000-year existence, feeding into the seal, converting lifespan into barrier strength. Yuki! Arya screamed from inside the cottage. Keep the anchor steady, Yuki shouted back. I'll hold them however long it takes. The seal will kill you. I know. Her voice was calm, peaceful, the voice of someone who had finally found redemption. I let your father die, Kaito. I used his sacrifice to buy time for you. Now I'm buying time the same way. The only difference, she smiled. This time, I'm choosing it myself. The seal blazed brighter. Yuki's body began to fade. Grandmaster Yuki, the blind sage, the woman who had witnessed civilizations rise and fall, who had helped imprison one void sovereign and trained another. She burned, not with void energy, not with divine power, with purpose. 10,000 years of life compressed into a single act of defiance. And in those flames, she found something she hadn't felt since the day she helped seal Kazuki away. Peace. Inside the cottage, the world had shrunk to 2 people and a miracle. Arya's hands were frozen to Kaito's, her ice energy the only thing keeping his consciousness from dissolving entirely. She had been sitting for 12 hours, not moving, not eating, not sleeping, pouring everything she had into the anchor. Her Ice Empress bloodline was burning out. She didn't care. Come back, she whispered. Kaito, come back. You're almost there. And deep inside the void, Kaito heard her. Inside the void, Kaito did what his grandfather never could. He didn't try to contain infinity. He didn't try to control it. He gave it something it had never had. A direction, not a cage. A compass. The void, infinite, chaotic, without purpose for 10,000 years. Felt, for the first time, what it was like to have a partner instead of a prisoner. And it responded. The pillar of energy that erupted from the cottage was visible from the capital. But it wasn't destruction. It was creation. The void, pure potential, channeled through a human soul for the first time in history. Not to consume, not to destroy, to create. The forests grew, the air sang, the earth breathed, and from the heart of the light, a figure emerged. Kaito Yamamoto, not the weakest student anymore, not the host of a forbidden power, not a weapon or a threat or a monster, the first true Void Sovereign, the Void's partner, infinity with a compass. The power was still there, infinite, overwhelming, but it was no longer an ocean drowning him. It was an ocean he could sail. Seraphil saw Kaito emerge, and the corrupted divine champion, a being who had fought gods and demons and everything in between, felt something he had never experienced, even before his corruption. True awe. Kaito placed his hand on the seal and felt Yuki, not gone. Her life force, her consciousness, her 10,000 years of memories woven into the barrier itself. She had given her body, but her essence remained, held in the space between the runes. I found you, Kaito whispered, and the void, his void, reached into the seal, not to break it, to save what was inside. The old void would have consumed her essence without thought. The new void, Kaito's void, chose differently. He chose to save, and in doing so proved that everything his grandfather's memory had promised was true. The void was potential, and potential could be anything. The seal fell, Seraphil charged, and the Void Sovereign met him. Kaito didn't fight Seraphil, he healed him. The void energy that Morath had used to corrupt the Divine Champion was still void energy. It still answered to the Sovereign, and the true Sovereign, the first one to wield the void with purpose rather than hunger, didn't need to destroy it. He could reclaim it. Seraphil fell to his knees, not in defeat, in liberation. For the first time since Morath captured him, the divine champion was himself again. His mind clear, his power restored, his chains broken by the very force that had been used to bind him. He looked up at Kaito, and the champion of the gods did something no divine being had done to a mortal in the entire history of creation. He bowed. 300 corrupted soldiers purified in an instant, not killed, saved. The stolen void energy reclaimed, the human beings beneath it released, not destruction, creation, the void. Sovereign hadn't won a battle. He had ended one without a single death. The battle was over, not through destruction, through transformation. Ren was alive, wounded. His divine blessing burned to a fraction of its former power, but alive. He had bought 4 minutes against a corrupted god. Those 4 minutes had saved everything. Seraphiel, purified, humbled, stood guard over the fallen soldiers, his divine healing restoring what Morath's corruption had stolen. Arya sat against a tree, Yuki's luminous essence cradled in her lap, her ice-blue eyes watching Kaito with an expression that held 1,000 words she'd say later, and Kaito stood at the center of it all. He felt different, not just powerful, complete. The void was no longer a hunger inside him. It was a sense, a new way of perceiving reality. He could feel the potential in everything, the growth waiting in seeds, the healing waiting in wounds, the change waiting in stagnation. Infinite possibility, directed by his will. It was terrifying. It was beautiful. It was his. "I will deliver your message," Seraphiel said. "But I must warn you, the gods are afraid, and afraid gods are dangerous. I know. I've been dealing with dangerous things my whole life. This is different. Everything's been different since I touched that crystal. I'll manage." Seraphiel rose, extended his hand, a gesture of equals. Not a divine champion and a mortal, but 2 warriors who had fought each other and come through the other side. Kaito took it. "One more thing," Seraphiel said. "Morath, but you won't stop. The prison is still cracked. Your grandfather is still inside, and the madness will drive him to break free regardless of your transformation. I know. You'll need to face him eventually. Kazuki, the original Void Sovereign. I know that too. Are you ready?" Kaito looked at the sword in his hand. His father's blade, his grandfather's legacy, his own future. "No, but I wasn't ready for any of this, and I'm still here." 4 minutes against a corrupted god. Not bad for a pampered prodigy, right? Not bad at all. Rest. We're not done yet. I can't feel my blessing. I think it's gone, burned out. Then we'll find you a new source of strength, one that doesn't come from birthright. Earned, not given? Now you're learning. The weakest student in Academy history just became the most powerful being in existence. Kaito transformed the void from a force of destruction into a force of creation. He saved Seraphiel, freed 300 corrupted soldiers, preserved Yuki's consciousness, and sent a message to the gods themselves. He's not their weapon, not their enemy. He's something they've never dealt with before, someone who makes his own rules. But Morath is still out there. The divine prison is still cracked. And somewhere in the depths, Kazuki, 10,000 years of madness in a breaking cage, felt his grandson's transformation, and the insane Void Sovereign smiled. Part 7, The God War, is coming, and it will change this world forever. Subscribe, hit the bell, right now. You've come this far, don't stop now. Tell me in the comments, now that Kaito has transformed, who wins, grandfather or grandson, the destroyer or the creator? See you in the next chapter.